Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So, on today's episode, I want to talk about some unique and inspiring custom commanders. Now, there's an entire community out there that makes custom Magic cards, and I reached out to a few of the creators of those cards and asked if it'd be okay if I showed some of them off. There's some really cool and unique designs that I think could make for some really awesome commanders, so let's jump into it. So first up, let's talk about Cungas the Fungus King from I Am Ezlor on Reddit. Cungas is a 0/0 fungus that costs 1 green-blue and enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. You can remove a +1/+1 counter from Cungas and put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. And by removing 2 +1/+1 counters from Cungas, you draw a card. So aside from having perhaps the best name in Magic of all time, this is a value engine. Cungas helps you both ramp and draw, both of which are extremely important in Commander. The more lands that we get into play, the further ahead we get mana-wise, and the more cards we get in our hand, the more options that we have. But this is all dependent on how many counters Cungas has on it. So we're going to want plenty of ways to get more counters on Cungas, and the best of which is probably Retreat to Kazandu. It's an enchantment for 2 and a green, and it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, or you gain 2 life. Now, obviously the more relevant of these two for this deck is going to be that first one. We remove a counter from Cungas to get a land into play, and then we get a +1/+1 counter on Cungas. So with this setup, we can put every single land from our hand onto the battlefield. And if we've got a bounce land, we can just keep putting it back into play and then back into our hand infinitely. Now that's not going to help us unless we've got other landfall triggers in this deck like Tatiova. She has whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and draw a card. There are plenty of other great landfall effects in Simic, and Tatiova is one of the best of them. And of course we want some +1/+1 counter synergy, so something like Hardened Scales is going to be great for this deck. It's an enchantment for a green, and it says if 1 or more +1/+1 counters we put on a creature you control, that many +1 +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. So basically we get extra counters on Cungas to help us put more lands into play and help us draw more cards. I feel like Cungas is a very unique landfall / +1/+1 counters commander. But now let's move on to our next custom commander with the Mindbender, which comes from Fatal Mist on Reddit. The Mindbender is a 1/4 Djinn Wizard with Vigilance that costs 2 white/blue. It has players may look at the top card of their library at any time and may play the top card of their library. And whenever an opponent casts a spell from their library, you gain 2 life and draw a card. This is a very unique commander that opens up a whole new strategy for many players. Many decks don't revolve around playing off the top of their library or finding ways to do so, but this lets all players do it. And when they do, you benefit. Because each time they cast a spell from the top of their library, you gain 2 life and draw a card. So by providing your opponents with value, you also get some as well. Now, many players might see this as a group hug commander, but I prefer to call it political control. Anyways, I'd be looking to make a lot of deals with opponents with things like Ghoulcaller's Bell. It's an artifact for 1 and it has tap, each player mills a card. Now with this commander, each player is only able to look at the top card of their own library. So unless you've got another card that can help you look at the top card of their libraries, you can't just use this card to deny them of certain cards. But what you can do, and what this deck wants to do, is politic and make deals. If one of your opponents has a dead card on top of their library, you can offer to mill them for 1. Now, of course, with this kind of a deal that you're making, you're also going to want something else in return. You're essentially drawing them a card by milling the top useless card of their library and hopefully getting them something better. And again, when they can cast that card, then you benefit even more. But a fantastic way to benefit even further is Wall of Lost Dreams. It's an artifact for 4, and it says whenever you gain life, you may pay X for X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gained. If you do, draw X cards. So now when you draw that card and gain 2 life, you can pay 2 and then draw 2 more. That kind of value is absolutely absurd. Now with this kind of a control deck, the best way to finish your opponents off might just be to utilize your life total. So something like Aetherflux Reservoir can come in huge. It's an artifact for 4, and it says whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell that you've cast this turn. In pay 50 life, Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to our creature or player. So this basically turns your life total into a weapon. Even if you don't have enough life to kill everyone, you can easily use this to hold your opponents hostage. And that's exactly what a political control deck would want to do. Next up, let's move on to the 15 from Are You Though? This card is really special to me for a couple of reasons. First off, on my first Custom Commanders episode, I featured amazing cards from Are You Though. Secondly, the incredible artwork seen on this piece comes from the incredibly talented Santiago Rosas, who did my very first Kickstarter playmat. And the last reason this one's special to me is because squirrels are awesome. So the 15 is a 1/1 legendary squirrel that costs 2 green, green, green. It has a sorcery adventure that's called Assemble the Heroes for a green, and that's going to create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. And then when the 15 enters the battlefield, choose target creature. Each squirrel you control gains indestructible until end of turn and fights that creature. This, of course, is a reference to the joke that 15 flying squirrels could kill the most powerful being in the multiverse with Emrakul. So this card helps you get started with your squirrel army by making you one. And then when it's time for the 15 to come into play, your squirrels are going to take out a creature, and they're going to survive the fight. Needless to say, this is an extremely flavorful card. And the direction that I take this deck is, of course, Squirrel Tribal. So making a ton of squirrels with Squirrel Nest seems like a great idea. It's an ore that has enchant land, and it costs 1 green, green. It says enchanted land has tap, create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. So if we've got some ways to untap that land, we can make multiple squirrels in a turn. Another great card for this deck would be Deep Forest Hermit. It's a 1/1 elf druid with Vanishing 3 that costs 3 green, green. When it enters the battlefield, you make 4 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. And on top of that, your squirrels get +1/+1. That's 8 total power worth of squirrels. And when the 15 comes into play, that's going to be more than enough to take out pretty much whatever creature you want. And on top of that, giving your squirrels indestructible helps a lot with combat, because when you swing out, your squirrels are still going to survive. And of course, we want to abuse that ETB, so let's include a card like Temur Sabertooth. It's a 4/3 cat that costs 2 green, green, and it has pay 1 and a green. You may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, Temur Sabertooth gains indestructible until end of turn. So essentially, this is a repeatable way to bounce the 15 back to our hand. And of course, we can also use that to bounce back things like Deep Forest Hermit to make even more squirrels. So yeah, fighting Squirrel Tribal is a pretty fun concept. And the last custom commander I'm going to talk about comes from Victor the 7th, and its name is a doozy. Hippofickle Crazed Chronoculus. He's a 1/3 homunculus that costs 1 blue-red. He has whenever you draw or discard a card, flip a coin. Whenever you win a coin flip, you may exile an instant or sorcery card from your hand. If you do, put 2 time counters on it. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. And then whenever you lose a coin flip, Hippofickle deals 2 damage to you. So this is an extremely unique design for a coin flip commander. It can either really help you or really hurt you depending on your coin flips. If you flip right, you can essentially cast an instant or sorcery for free in the future. But if the flip doesn't come up your way, you're going to be taking some damage. Now I think that there's a decent amount of ways that you can take this deck, and I think there's some really powerful things that you can do with it. But the first card that came to mind is of course Croc's Thumb. It's a legendary artifact that costs 2 and says if you would flip a coin, instead flip 2 coins and ignore 1. So this helps you win a lot more coin flips. When you're flipping a coin normally, you've got a 50-50 chance of winning that flip. And if my math is right, if you flip a coin twice and ignore 1, you've got a 75% chance of winning. So basically 3 out of 4 times you get to suspend an instant or sorcery for free. 1 out of those 4 times you're going to be taking damage, but that's still better than 50-50. Anyways, of course you want plenty of cards that help you draw and discard with this deck. And of course you want some big cards to suspend since you're basically cheating on mana cost. So something like Overflowing Insight would be perfect for this deck. It's a sorcerer for 4 blue, 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 so 7 mana in total, and it says target player draw 7 cards. So after winning a coin flip, you suspend this, 2 turns later you cast it for free and draw a ton. And then you get to flip a ton of coins. The more that you win, the more big spells that you can suspend. So essentially your spells kind of lead into other spells in a delayed way. Especially without Croc's Thumb though, this can be a high risk, high reward play. If you lose a lot of the coin flips, you're going to be taking a ton of damage. So that's where something like Lockstead and Warhammer can help you a ton. It's an equipment that costs 3 and it costs 3 to equip, and it says equip creature gets +3/+0 and has trample and lifelink. Now that +3/+0 and trample are nice, but what we really want here is a lifelink. Because lifelink essentially negates the damage that we're going to be taking from our commander. So we might be taking 2 damage, but we're also going to be gaining 2 life from that. So if a coin flip doesn't come up our way and we've got this on our commander, nothing bad happens. And there are other equipments that give lifelink as well, but I believe this one's the most budget. Anyways, I definitely think this is a unique design for a commander, and whenever you can get a Cyclops homunculus on a card, that's pretty sweet. Now, because these commanders weren't printed by Wizards, they're not legal in the commander format, but as always, I like to encourage players to just talk with your playgroup because they might be okay with you building around with these, and then you could have a blast doing so. So, in the comments below, let me know which of these commanders you're most excited about. Which one would you most want to build around? So yeah, let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks again, and have a good one.